Welcome back. Now, the mining industry is busy gearing itself up for re-industrialization. This is a key focus at the 2024 Joburg Indaba, where leaders in government, state-owned enterprises and top-tier mining companies spend time pondering what needs to be done differently in the sector as it moves towards this pivot. Bernard Swanepoel, convener of the Indaba, joins us with more detail. Thank you so much for your time, Bernard. Now, just characterize the state of the mining industry as we take a deep dive into the Joburg Indaba this week.
I would like to reflect on it in sort of four different sort of ways. The first one is we are really seeing a great degree of optimism. Okay. Now, of course, miners are by nature optimistic, but we had people speak about investment, about South Africa's abundance of metals and minerals, and about our skills and our expertise. The second big theme was collaboration. There's a recognition that the government, including our SOEs and the companies, need to work together. Our Minister Mantashe and representatives from his department participated and will continue to participate. And I hope they heard miners and investors not only need policy certainty, but they also need good policy. The third point is we actually had the CEOs of Transnet and Eskom on the stage, and we put tough questions to them. I think there's a cautious optimism about Eskom, but the jury is still out on Transnet. And then perhaps my final point, but certainly not the most important one, is the issue of critical minerals. Critical minerals represent a massive opportunity for South Africa, but we need to encourage exploration. We need to welcome investors, and we need to define what do we mean when we say critical minerals. Not every metal and mineral can be critical. We need to be clear on how we define them. Those are the four sort of key themes I think has emerged over the last 2 days.
Well, great, because I will actually be zooming into some of those, Bernard. Starting off with the current policy, are we dealing with just bad policy or policy that is incomplete or policy that is just too rigid?
You know, I think it's a little bit of everything. There are components that are clearly just bad and not internationally competitive, but it's always a constant overhang. It's like we're never done, you know? I mean, to take back the example of the sort of infamous mining charter, I mean, it's never done, you know? So how do you make 20, 30, 40-year investments if you don't know what the rules are by which you will be, you know, will have to play the game? So certainty is important, but not only certainty, certainly competitive policy that invite people, that make them feel welcome, that make them bring their money. Clearly, that's in the interest of the country.
And Bernard, I mean, basically the whole point of this is to breathe life into the mining industry. We talk about re-industrialization. Is it a question of, you know, what not to do more than trying to figure out what to do?
You know, there's always a what not to do. What should we stop doing? What regulations or rules are unnecessary? So we touch on red tape and removing things. But quite frankly, this is not shifting the blame to the government. We're dealing with this as an industry, a foundational industry like the mining industry. Can we, for example, make a difference by just redirecting some of our procurement more progressively towards localization, towards local development, and that could be a catalyst to make a contribution to the growth of the economy.
Bernard, you talk about cautious optimism. You spoke a lot about optimism. And is that just based on the formation of the GNU? Are there maybe signs of confidence that you are seeing that could, you know, significantly filter through to the mining industry?
You know, it certainly are looking like the whole of government is re-energized, you know? I mean, and obviously the Minister of Mines is exactly the same person, and we've always had a constructive relationship with Minister Mantashe. But we are dependent on skills. So we also need visa applications to work. We function in local environments, so we also need municipalities to work. We actually depend on Eskom and Transnet, and our water needs to come from somewhere. So mining is a representation of South Africa Inc. If South Africa works, then mining becomes easier, and better. And if mining works, then South Africa is in a better place. So it's a true symbiotic partnership between us and the economy at large.
Yeah, I mean, there's also really a big conversation on the role of Africa in, supplying critical metals and minerals. Does South Africa have a role to play in that space?
Oh, absolutely. And this is a South African-focused conversation, but obviously some of the participants operate in other neighboring countries, Angola, Botswana, and etc., Zimbabwe. But from a South African perspective, I mean, the world's largest, best resource of manganese is in South Africa. But we mine and we export. We do almost no value add to that. Obviously, platinum, critical for the future of hydrogen. And for the current sort of economy of the world. It's concentrated in South Africa and Zimbabwe. Iron ore, we're a key player. And then obviously for South Africa itself, we are dependent on our coal resources for our electricity. 80% of our electricity comes from coal-based fire stations. Clearly, getting coal mining right and competitive is in the national interest.
Bernard, have we laid, because you spoke about collaboration, but have we laid a solid enough foundation for that to actually, breed, solid results in terms of the breathing back to life the mining industry?
I think the mining industry will be the first to admit that we are not playing the role we could play. Now, then we will first blame government, and then we will blame the world markets. And then, as all people, will at some stage look in the mirror and say, what is it that we can do? Now, when the country come together, like they have now with the presidential initiative, and we commit to 3.3% economic growth, then it becomes easy to say, as a mining industry, what is our contribution? How can we not only carry our weight, but make a disproportionate contribution to economic growth? And I think that's where we are now. So let's stop the blame game and let's convert the optimism into what is it that we can do? Of course, we can't do this without additional funding. Of course, that funding can't come from the government. And yes, it can come from businesses, current companies, but it has to come as foreign direct investment. And therefore, how does the world see South Africa's investment destination is always a critical component of any conversation when it comes to mining.
Well, you talk about, investment into the space, Bernard, and I'm actually wondering, you talk about a re-energization as well. Is this a space where people are actually having pretty candid and honest conversations in terms of what has been blocking investment and what actually needs to be cleared out?
That's, of course, what we pride ourselves in the Joburg Indaba. We really talk to each other in the same venue at the same time, blunt, honest conversations. But the anecdotal evidence of both the politicians who are back from international roadshows and the mining CEOs is that the world's truly paying attention.
Yeah.
And a key factor is really the GNU. I mean, people are amazed that a governing party that has been ruling forever and had an outright majority, and they lost it, and they signed up for something which nobody thought was possible. So that alone makes people pay attention again. It's a good news story, one of the few that came from South Africa lately, and let's not waste that fantastic moment of hope.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and really giving us a kind of story as to what is happening at the Joburg Indaba and how to really breathe life back into the mining industry. Thank you so much for your time, Bernard. That was Bernard Swanepoel, convener of the Joburg Indaba.